All right, welcome into SportsBIT. Betting Insight today, Tuesday, March 29th. Pauly and Teddy. Deep dive today will be NL West preview and the play of the day. Big game breakdown. We got the TNT game with the Rockets and the Cavs and the two NIT games coming up from the Garden. We start with bad beats, Teddy. And how about the Bulls? Oh, man. Atlanta laying 3. The Hawks and the Bulls. Atlanta laying 3. They're up 5 with 19 seconds left. A 4-point play by Butler. All right, everyone stay calm. And then the Hawks come back to have a 5-point lead after knocking down some free throws. It looks like Rose is going to lose the ball and then dribble it out. He hits a 3 from the parking lot, puts it on 2. If you had the Hawks, tough beat. The 3 makes it a final of a 2-point win for the Hawks. And I don't know. I can't believe Rose made the shot. I can't believe he took the shot, Teddy. But wait a second. Here's a brutal beat if you had the Blazers.
Yeah. I mean, that Bulls beat is nothing. Atlanta bettors have nothing on Portland bettors from last night. I'll tell you that. Now, crazy line move on this game. Mm-hmm. The Blazers opened 11 against Sacramento. Bet all the way down to -9, and then boom, all of a sudden, no Cousins, no Rondo, second night of back-to-backs. The line shoots up to 13.5 at the close. So, Sacramento allows 68 first-half points. They score 11 in the third. They're down by 28 going in the fourth, catching 13.5. With 4:40 remaining, it's a 27-point Portland lead. Doesn't matter if you laid 9, 10, 11, 13. You got to be feeling pretty comfortable with that bet, considering you've crushed them for the entire game.
Yep.
Who got the money? The Kings did, of course. 16-1 closeout to close the game. Effing brutal. Seth Curry, 9 points over the final 4:20, hitting a bunch of 3 balls. And, here's the pick right here. That is not a happy picture if you were a Portland bettor. And, of course, that was the ones we're talking about. Just 2 of the 4 NBA games last night that were decided against the spread by less than a bucket.
Yeah, effing brutal's right. To the bad bets. How about the Raptors? Cue up the Vince Lombardi. What the hell's going on out there? What a no-show by the Raptors. And look at this graphic. Here's the plus-minus in the game. Westbrook, plus 35. Robertson, plus 25. Durant, plus 15. Ibaka, plus 39. Adams, plus 33. Then you look at the Raptors. Lowry, minus 19. DeRozan, minus 26. This was a bloodbath. And OKC now, 8 straight wins, Teddy. They've scored at least 110 points.
In every game. The last team that has won 8 straight while scoring 110 plus in every game, the Orlando Magic, led by Shaquille O'Neal and Anthony Hardaway back in 1994. Yeah, it's been a while. OKC's playing some pretty good ball. Toronto, not a good bet, but that wasn't the worst bet in the NBA last night. Neither were the Celtics. Celtics were a terrible bet. I had Boston in my pocket yesterday. Bad bet. But the worst one was what went on in Salt Lake City, Paul. Kobe Bryant may not have been the only one in the Laker organization to take on the Jazz in Salt Lake City for the very last time. Byron Scott, this is his birthday yesterday. He dropped to 452 and 641 as an NBA head coach. The 189 games below 500 is currently the most by any head coach in NBA freaking history.
Yep.
Does Byron Scott deserve to come back? I don't know.
What?
It also
What?
Marked
What are you kidding me with that question? He's one of the worst coaches of all time. I can't believe he got the job in the first place.
Yeah, I'm preaching to the choir over here, my friend. It also marked the single worst loss of Kobe's career. He was a minus 43 in 28 minutes.
Yes, that was a run out and a blowout from the get-go. Wow, what an embarrassment for the Lakers. And then you have, how about a bad bet? Vegas 16, the people who organized this tournament and put it on here in Las Vegas yesterday. I mean, I thought that was the Vegas 16 was as many people that bought a ticket to the damn games. I mean, I checked out the game that was on to start the day at 12 Pacific. Nobody. I don't know if there were 1,000 people there.
Oh, no, I'll take the under. Look at the picture. There's nobody there. And nobody's making any money off of the Vegas 16. Yeah, we'll call that a bad bet. From conceptually, I'm all in favor. More basketball, more opportunities, yada, yada. But this tournament doesn't seem like it's going to last very long, as we talked about yesterday.
No. All right. You have the floor here. Talk about Major League Baseball right around the corner, and we're hitting it hard with the division previews. Talk about how the betting marketplace has changed in Major League Baseball.
Sure. I mean, one of the things we try to do here on SportsBIT every single day is bring you high-level betting information. And, this take right here, I don't know if it gets, for me personally, if it's going to get much higher level than what we're going to go. This discussion is going to be a little bit deep, and it may not be, there may be some questions you have. If you have questions about it, of course, always go into the comments section. Throw a question in, Pauly or I'll come in and answer it over the course of the day. But let's start with a look at this graph right here, because, you ain't no stinking genius if you ride the back of a bus that's already overcrowded. Now, the MLB betting marketplace are absolutely falling in love with two stats, XFIP and strikeouts per nine. Those are the stats, the advanced metric stats, that have taken over the markets over the course of the last 2, 3, 5 seasons. But what's happened really in the last year or two is this is now all the markets react to. They want pitchers that throw strikeouts. They want pitchers that don't allow fly balls. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with a marketplace like this. And we look at the graph again. Chris Sale, Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, Archer in Tampa Bay, Carrasco and Kluber in Cleveland. Those are the 6 pitchers with the highest strikeout per 9 inning ratios last year. Guess what? If you bet on those 6 pitchers in every game, you lost 40.5 units. That shows how the marketplace is overvaluing this particular stat. These are aces, every one of them, an ace. And yet, every one of them a money loser. The best pitchers in their particular category all cost their backers money. Even the ones who had winning records and who the team had winning records in those games, Paul. That's remarkable. I mean,
this is going to be wild this year with the Mets. And an excellent breakdown. So the Mets won 90 games last year, and they are only plus 6 units. Well, now it's like, oh my God, they went to the World Series, and look at this pitching staff. If that happens this year, you're going to lose money.
Exactly. If the Mets win 90 games this year, they will lose money. We're going to talk about the Dodgers later in the show. The Dodgers are obviously weaker without Zach Greinke on the mound. And yet LA is likely to be much more profitable. Look at Cleveland and Kansas City from last year as an example. Cleveland won 14 fewer games than KC in 2015. They scored 55 fewer runs than the Royals and allowed only 1 run less than KC for the entirety of the campaign. So clearly, the Indians were a weaker team than the Royals. Yet the average lay price, if you go through every game and average it out, for the Indians it was minus 120. And compare that to minus 111 for Kansas City. The Royals they come out of nowhere. They were a World Series team in 2014 too. But Cleveland consistently priced higher than KC in the betting markets. Why? Corey Kluber, Carlos Carrasco, and Danny Salazar. 3 guys that all ranked in the top 5 in that strikeout through 9 inning stat. All 3 hurlers ranked in the top 10 in the American League in the XFIP stat as well, the fielding independent pitching. So what happens? That means that you're going to lay a higher price to support those guys game after game after game. Kansas City, they didn't have the sexy starting pitching. Therefore, the lower lay price. In my opinion, Paul, and this is the key to this whole discussion, in my opinion, you cannot and will not beat baseball this year by focusing on starting pitching even a little bit. What you have to do is find the other factors that are undervalued in the betting markets. Things like, how good the lineup is. Or, gee, how good is this bullpen? Can they close out games or are they going to blow every lead? Lineups, bullpens, streaks. Those are the 3 avenues that I suggest offer profitability for MLB in the modern betting markets. Starting pitchers, and particularly starting pitchers who have those sexy advanced metric stats, will cost you money.
Well done. Great breakdown indeed. Big game breakdown up next. We'll start in the association. That's coming up on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today. All right, time for big game breakdown. We start in the association. The first game on TNT. Rockets on the road to take on the Cavs. Cavs 1.5, 214. No LeBron in this one. He's sitting it out tonight. And you look at the 4 March games with no LeBron, no Kyrie, and no Love. Cavs are 4-0 straight up and 3-1 ATS. the full
Well,
lineup.
hang on, Paul. Let me just jump in real quick because that's without any one of the three. Anytime that James is sat or Love is sat or Irving is sat.
Okay, thank you.
So when they're missing one of the big three, they're winning games and covering spreads. What happens when they have all five?
Last 5, 2 and 3, straight up, outscored by 62.5 ATS, and the last 3 losses are by 39 points. Tyronn Lue, if these guys are struggling so much, why are you sitting guys?
Well, I mean, with Cleveland, it's Lue's not the coach. LeBron's the coach. And it's worth noting. Again, the Cavs' last 5 with their full lineup. They have 3 outright losses, 0-5 against the spread, and they've lost those games by an average of more than 12 points per contest ATS. They've been a disaster with the full lineup. So, does it make sense? I don't know if it makes sense, really, for Cleveland. But on the other hand, if you don't want the Cavs here, and again, the Cavs have been better without one of their big three. Do you really want Houston in this spread range?
No, I want no part of them. No part of them. They're not.
Yeah. I mean, the Rockets have been mercurial. Okay, they've played at times, even down the stretch. They've certainly played better than Dallas, for example, over the course of the last couple of weeks. They've been fighting, whereas the Mavs are just, taking a punch and not punching back. But the Rockets, for me, are a very, very difficult team to handicap. A lot of inconsistency for Houston, and maybe without LeBron, Cavs will be a better bet than they would be with him.
Rockets aren't playing any defense, and it's been that way from the get-go. And these guys really don't care. How can you say that? They're pro athletes. Well, look at this. They go to the Western Conference Finals, they come back, and right away they get McHale fired, and this team might not even finish 500. It's embarrassing. They don't bother to get back on defense or even play hard in some of these games. It's an embarrassment what's gone on this year with the Rockets. To the NIT, BYU.
I love your passion, Paul. I love it.
BYU
Fire
and
away
Valpo, New York City, baby. Valpo 2, 147. This is the early game, a battle of tempo. Valpo wants to go slow. BYU wants to get up and go. Look at this graphic with the pace ratings. BYU 10th, Valpo 262. BYU only 5 games with a total less than 150 on the season, although they did go 3-2 ATS in those 5 games, Teddy.
Yeah, and I'm really not surprised that Valpo's taking a little bit of money off the opener here. My numbers had Valpo deserving to be a clear favorite in this game, and at this point, they are from an opener that was kind of in the pick'em range. And a lot of that has to do with defense. When you look at the defensive ratings, BYU's decent, number 87 in the country. Valpo's number 8. And it's much easier to slow a fast team down than it is to speed a slow team up. This game, in my mind, more likely to be played at the Crusaders' pace than at the Cougars' pace. But it's kind of a fascinating game in terms of experience. We talk about what experience means at this time of the year. Here's BYU. Thanks to the 2-year Mormon missions, they have a starting 5. Their youngest guy in the starting 5 is 21 years old. Imagine that at Kentucky. 21, 22, 23, 24, and 24. Nick Emery's a 21-year-old freshman. 25-year-old Nate Austin comes off the bench. How about this, Paul, for BYU? The seniors, Kyle Collinsworth and Kyle Davis, they both played as freshmen in the 2010-2011 season. That's when BYU was still in the Mountain West. And oh yeah, by the way, there was some guy named Kawhi Leonard playing at San Diego State.
Yes.
That's how old these guys are. Valpo starts 3 seniors, a 4th-year junior, and a 3rd-year junior. All their starters are age 20-plus as well. These teams are here, Paul, because of the experience factor as much as any other thing that we can say. And the home court advantage in the first couple of rounds of the NIT certainly helped too.
Yes, game number 2, George Washington and San Diego State. The Aztecs 3, 128.5 the total. A great job by Steve Fisher, because this program expects to make it to the tournament every year and maybe win a game. So they came out with that Fort Wayne game at home. There's only like 8,000 people at the game, but 3-0 ATS in the NIT. Beat the spread by 36 points, and they're loose, having a lot of fun. They're averaging 81 points per game. A great coaching job getting these guys fired up and motivated when they were so down in the dumps after they didn't make the tournament with an at-large.
And remember, when we did our NIT preview show, we had San Diego State as a bet against team based on that disappointment. That's one we were dead wrong about, Paul. And, when we're wrong, we got to say we're wrong. I was wrong about that. You may or may not have been wrong, but I know I was pretty convinced that San Diego State wasn't going to be any good in the NIT, and I couldn't have been wrong. Now, talk about Steve Fisher. Look at the picture, man. This guy's the Fisher King for getting his Aztecs to buy into that tournament that started out as a major disappointment. But you talked about that 81.3 points per game average here in the postseason. Let's not forget, Steve Fisher, pretty darn good track record when it comes to Final Fours and tournaments. I seem to remember him at Michigan. What did he make? The championship game 3 times in his first 4 years and 6 games as a head coach. Talk about experience again. San Diego State, 2 seniors, a juniors, a couple of sophomores. That's the youngest starting lineup of the 4 semifinalists, and the only one with teenagers. Trey Kell, Malik Pope, both 19. George Washington, man, if you've been reading the quotes from GW throughout the course of this tournament, the seniors are really stepping up and talking about how they wanted to be in NYC. 3 seniors, a 4th-year junior, and a 21-year-old sophomore in Japan's Yuta Watanabe.
Oh, yes. Hey, even the coaching staff was fired up. They were talking trash before the Monmouth game, too. And they went in there and beat them as well. That's Big Game Breakdown. Deep dive up next. We continue our division previews with the NL West and the play of the day on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today. Welcome back on SportsBIT. Time for the NL West. We start with the Giants. 84 wins last year. What do? Spend some money, baby. They go out and add Cueto and Samardzija to the rotation. Hessen will start and be the number 5 with Kane on the DL. Once he comes back, that's a great rotation. One of the best managers in baseball with Bochy. Little concerns about the lineup, but here it is. Where this team figures to be they're the best, they're the favorite to win the division for a reason, Tenny, having said with the rotation and the manager, and it's an even year.
Exactly. Everyone's going to be in love with San Fran because it's an even year. But let's talk about Bochy. I mean, how much would you say Bochy is worth in a season? He worth 5 wins?
Yes, no doubt.
Is he worth 10 wins?
Well, I know Joe Madden was. I mean, it's tough. Maybe.
But certainly when it comes to a well-coached team, San Fran is that team. For a disappointment, remember, this team was a major disappointment last year. They still won 84 games. They were basically break-even money-wise. And it's worth noting, looking for ways you might want to get at San Francisco this year. This team was a great run-line team last year, top 5 in baseball. When they were dogs, they lost games by only 1 run or 1, and they won games by margin as chalk. And with San Francisco, again, I'm not in love with Samardzija. I'm not in love with Cueto. I think they're talking about 2 pitchers who are going to be maybe a little bit overpriced coming into the campaign, particularly playing for this team. But San Fran may be a team that you want to be laying a run and a half and or taking a run and a half with more than you get involved with the regular money line price.
And for what it's worth, Samardzija's velocity is down in spring training. To Arizona, 79 wins last year, and they went out and spent some money and made some moves. They were second in the league in runs, and no depth. That's a problem. If there's an injury early, watch out. But they spent all that money and stole Greinke from the Dodgers. They made a trade and acquired Shelby Miller, and you get a healthy Corbin. Good rotation, Teddy.
On top of the rotation, in theory, it should be. But, remember, as you talked about, they were the second in runs last year in the National League. And at 79 wins, they were the single most profitable team to support in the division. Again, getting back to what I was first taking on earlier. Arizona, the 79-win team, yeah, they a lot more money betting Arizona than they did betting the Dodgers last year, who won the division. Now, I do have a ton of concerns here. And let's start with Greinke. Greinke's coming off, his best year? He had a 1.66 ERA last year. But he ended up throwing a career-high 236 innings, including the 2 starts in the playoffs. He's 32 years old. He's coming off 2 seasons where he's thrown about 450 innings. And oh, by the way, instead of pitching at pitcher-friendly Dodger Stadium, he's going to be pitching at hitter-friendly Chase Field.
Good point.
And here's another key little factor. Instead of throwing to Yasmani Grandal, one of the baseball's best pitch framers, now he's throwing to Wellington Castillo, who has, again, the advanced metrics guy says he's one of the worst pitch framers. So you're going to have more, of those close pitches getting called for balls. But, you look at Goldschmidt and Pollock and a plus 14 WAR last year. There are things to like about Arizona right now. And talking about teams in this division with upside, certainly when you look at the back end of that rotation, Ruby De La Rosa, Robbie Ray, this team's got some upside, Paul.
Time to go to the Dodgers. 92 wins. They tell Mattingly, get out. Dave Roberts takes over, and he can smile because he's going to give the ball to Kershaw every 5th game. The oldest average position player last year in the league, 29 years old. No depth, and that's going to be an issue right off the get-go because Ethier's out for an extended period of time. We've discussed this on the show before. The bullpen stunk. Horrendous. How is your bullpen that bad when you got a $300 million payroll? And there's more. Ryu, McCarthy, Bolsinger, and Anderson all start this season on the DL. Who's going to be the number 2?
Yeah, who replaces Greinke? Alex Wood? Kenta Medea, Scott Kazmir, hanging on at the major league level by a thread. Carlos Frias. I don't know if there's a number 2 starter in that group. I don't know if there's even a true number 3 starter in that group. And again, the Dodgers won the division last year. And yet, if you bet the Dodgers in every game, you lost money. So here's the fascinating thing about LA. It's not going to be Greinke laying minus 240 and minus 260 in every game. So there's a decent chance they're going to be more profitable this year, but I think they're going to have a worse record.
What's Dave Roberts worth?
To be determined. Anyone other than Mattingly is worth at least a game.
Yes, yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. To the Rockies, 68 and 94 last year. 5 straight years of 73 wins or less. The worst bullpen in the league. Horrible pitching. Can we make some money going under with this team, Teddy?
Well, it's fascinating because, this is a squad that had the worst ERA in baseball last year. Their bullpen, the second most innings in baseball. Only Arizona threw more innings. No significant upgrades to the pitching staff. Tulo's gone. His replacement, Jose Reyes, he's got the looming domestic violence charges. I think his trial is slated for opening day. And the buzz is that his suspension could double or triple Chapman's 30 games for the Yanks.
Jesus.
So, in theory, this team's not going to be scoring a ton of runs necessarily. They're supposed to be giving up a lot of runs. But you talked about the unders. You're going to have to adjust your Coors Field stats. Because, we remember when the humidor got installed at Coors back in 2002, and all of a sudden, the runs drop. Well, this year, they raised the walls, the fence heights. GM Jeff Briddick. The goal is to raise the wall heights to make it potentially more playable and more fair for pitchers. We really don't know exactly the effect it's going to have. We're going to live it together this year and see what happens. They're raising the wall between right center and right field by 8 feet 9 inches, and it's going to have an impact. There will be fewer home runs, therefore there will be fewer runs scored. And I don't know if anyone's paying any attention to this. It's one of those things you kind of file away when you're doing your preseason research. Nobody's paying attention. There might be some money to be made betting Rockies under at home.
That is knockout information there. And we wrap it up with the Padres. Disaster. They went out and spent all that money last year, and they won 74 games, their worst record since 2011. Andy Green's the new manager. Kimbrel, Benoit, Kennedy, Upton, Alonso, all gone. And if Shields gets off to a hot start, they could move him too.
Yeah, this team has a feel of a squad that's tanking from day one. The thought process about Shields, I think, is absolutely correct. I do not expect, if he's effective, someone's going to want him. Even if he's ineffective, someone's going to want him. And he's the kind of guy that's likely to be dealt before the deadline, I should say. But this is the thing that stood out to me about San Diego last year, and it stands out again going into this year. You know how long Petco Field has been the number 1 under park in all of baseball. Mm-hmm. You just can't hit home runs there. You really can't. Petco doesn't have totals higher than 7 on a regular basis. I don't recall ever seeing an 8 at Petco. So the highest it basically gets is 7.5. Last year, San Diego, 93 and 62 to the over. No other team in baseball cashed more than 86 over. They were the number 1 over team in the game. And you know what? We might see more of the same this year. The pitching staff's not very good, and that bullpen was a disaster. It doesn't look any better. Betting over 7s in the National League. The markets don't like to do that. There was money to be made doing it last year. There might well be money to be made doing it again in this upcoming campaign.
Excellent numbers, Teddy. NL East, AL East, both tomorrow. And that leads us to the play of the day. Well, we got all these issues with the Dodgers. Who's going to be the number 2? How do you replace Greinke? Injuries already. Ethier out. I'm not sold on Peterson. And, all these guys starting on the DL. We're going to go under 89.5 wins for the LA Dodgers. We'll cash that ticket there. That's going to be a winner. ton of issues and question marks with it. I'm very confident, Teddy.
You sound like, and this photo just tells the whole story. Justin Turner and company are going to be pulling their hair out before this season is done in LA. Under 89.5 wins makes a lot of sense to me.
You got it. We're back Wednesday. Tell your friends on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today.